Welcome to Ellis B. Feaster's Radio Aircheck and Classic TV channel.
Are away, the cats are playing, man. And it's the other way around, isn't it? When the cats are... Yeah. Well, all I know is that one of the groovy things about being on a Saturday night is we just know there ain't nobody out there, and we just know that all those guys on the 23rd floor sitting on a fan tail of their yacht somewhere with their ear plugged into something else, so we could just say the real stuff. So bring it up there, Large. Real Now, you know what time of the year this is, and you know what this week is, huh? You do, huh? Well, I want to tell you, I'm a little nervous right now at this point. Every year, of course, we're such fantastic creatures of habit. Oh, by the way, did you know that Flipper, the dolphin? No, he's not a dolphin. He's a porpoise, isn't he? Flipper, the porpoise, is now making a triumphant tour of West Germany. And you thought it was only in America. So let's celebrate then. Let's salute Flipper out there, a great American, carrying the... And so tonight we would like to salute all those great Americans who have carried our way of life to the four corners of the globe. All right. Now reset that, Keith. We're going to need that. Hey, has it ever occurred to you, though, that about every roughly generation, now I'm using generation in its proper sense. Most people today use generation. If a guy's 3 years younger than you are, he's another generation. No, so that isn't true. Generations are roughly a quarter of a century apart. And I know that's a hard pill for a lot of you to swallow, but it is true. A generation in genetical terms is roughly a quarter of a century apart. So in 1 century, you can only have about 4 generations. But nevertheless, every generation, roughly, there has been a great animal character that has become a worldwide fantastic thing, at least in the 20th century. I mean, it transcends everything. For example, Mickey Mouse. In the 30s, Mickey Mouse was a great world character. And everyone in the world, they were all hung on this mouse. Nobody quite knew why it was a mouse. Well, mice are out. And poor Mickey is roughly relegated to the dust heap of great animal characters. Do you know that there was one before that was a great world animal character that took over? Everybody had something like it. They bought them and stuff all over the world, and it was roughly a generation before Mickey. Well, have you ever heard of the teddy bear? Well, the teddy bear was a bear that was designed about the time, from what I've heard, about the time, roughly, the turn of the century, or a little bit after. And it was named after who? That's right, Teddy Roosevelt. And that's right. And the teddy bear was a giant world phenomenon. Everybody in the world had teddy bears. And that was not just America. It was the whole world got ape on teddy bears. And then all of a sudden, the teddy bear went out of style. And that's he still remains, but he's not the big world phenomena that he once was. Now we're in the middle of a Snoopy phenomena. That the entire world now, everywhere you go, in fact, I've seen it in foreign countries all over. You see Snoopy. Now, that means people are hung on this dog, but it's always some kind of an animal, very simple. And I suppose if you want to become very esoteric about it and technical about it, you can even show that there are certain similarities in the drawings. They all have long, big ears, prominent ears. If you notice, each one of those has a prominent ear. And the nose. They all have that nose sticking out. Very good, that's true. They all have the same kind of a nose. And so maybe there is something subconscious, some kind of a psychological thing that makes this thing go. And most people hardly know any of the other characters in Peanuts, the cartoon character, but they all know Snoopy. Snoopy has transcended all of them. And as a matter of fact, there was another character that had a brief flurry that was very similar, that rose out of another cartoon strip. And this was also in the 30s. This was maybe the transition between Mickey and Snoopy. What was that character? Well, now this one didn't achieve. In fact, he became so famous that a lot of stuff was named after him, but he didn't achieve the wild acclaim. The Jeep. There was a character called the Jeep that was in Popeye, and that was what the Jeep really was named after him. After that, the Jeep car that we know today was named after the Jeep. And you know why they called him the Jeep? Well, why they called the car the Jeep? Because the Jeep was famous for one thing. He was like an early schmoo. The Jeep could do anything, and so could the Jeep, the Jeep car. But I don't know how I got on this whole thing. But it's kind of interesting to me. All of a sudden, I see the Snoopy thing all over the world, and I've thought about that. I thought, what is it that we're hung on cartoon animals? What is this hang-up? Winnie the Pooh is another classic example of a hang-up on it. And Winnie the Pooh looks almost exactly like all those other cartoon characters with the long nose, the ears. And yet, my favorite animal of all the animal types that have been created, what a groovy animal. I mean, what a terrific character, well-realized character, was Mr. Toad of Wind in the Willows. I think Wind in the Willows is probably... I mean, his hang-up on automobiles and all that, he had it all going. And I've often wondered why somebody doesn't bring back, I think the best thing that Disney ever did was Wind in the Willows with Mr. Toad, being Mr. Toad. But nevertheless, how I got started on this whole thing was that I was a little bit nervous here a couple of days ago. I'm walking around through the dime store, and always at this time of the year, the first week of September, right after Labor Day, it's a kind of trepidation. Do you feel this? Most of us, no matter who we are, spent probably a good third of our lives in school. If not a third, at least a good portion of our lives, and very important time of our life, from about the time we were 5 or 6 to roughly our late teens, early 20s. Now that is the formative time of your life. This is when you're being molded and formed. And not only formally, in the sense of being taught geography or how to read, or being taught formal education, you're also formed strange little almost unspoken, unconscious things deep down inside your gut that you don't even know you got, but they're always there. What always happened 1 week after the big holiday, after Labor Day? School started. That was a whole nervous moment. Now, why was it nervous? Well, most of us were going from one grade to the next. And we had a new teacher. It's a whole new ball game. And the kids, you were going to see kids that you had not seen all summer. You were going to see them again. Maybe. Some of them would move away. Other kids would come. And it was a time of real transition. And you were both nervous and excited at the same time, because we're always drawn towards these things. And at the same time, we're scared of change. I wonder, I'm going to do something tonight. I'm going to make an experiment tonight. A really serious experiment. And I want you to attempt to because it involves us. It involves you, it involves me, and it's us. In other words, the corporate us. Now, I want you to try to get all other subjects out of your mind for a minute. Forget about, the Mets game or whatever it is for just this minute. Can you remember? Now, think very hard. Your absolute first day in school. Now, you had one. Don't come and say, wow, what do you mean? You had a first day. Can you recall it? Now, come on. It's there. If you say you can't remember it, it's because you're really not concentrating. You did have a first day, and it did make an impression on you. I can guarantee you that. Now, the trick is to get that impression out so that you can look at it. It's like a pair of socks that you've lost in your apartment. Just because you can't find them does not mean that they're not there. The trick is finding it. Well, the other day, I am walking through Woolworth, right here on Broadway, Times Square. And I'm a great Woolworth fan. I love to go to Woolworths. I don't know what it is about Woolworths. It just excites me to see the name. Are there certain stores that excite you? I mean, you see the name of them? Well, I happen to have a Woolworth hang-up. I dig Woolworths. I mean, first of all, there's a certain sensuality about Woolworths. There's a certain type of girl that works in Woolworth. There's a very sensual quality about it. You know what I mean? And you go downstairs in Woolworths. I particularly dig the downstairs part of Woolworth. They have all this hardware type stuff and plants and birds and all kinds of strange stuff you'll find downstairs at Woolworth. Upstairs is the straight stuff, cosmetics, candy, the usual stuff. You go downstairs and you're going to get exotica, true exotica. And I like to go downstairs in Woolworth, just sort of, walk around down there. Well, the other night, I had nothing to do, and I had a couple of hours to kill. I had just finished some kind of an official type meeting someplace, and my show was going to be on, and I wandered through Times Square. I spent most of my life in Times Square. How would you like your neighborhood, friends, to be Times Square? Well, it's my neighborhood. I mean, that's my neighborhood. It really is. And so I'm hanging around the old neighborhood, and the Woolworth is our candy store in this neighborhood. See, so I drift in, and I note as I drift past that there's a new chick on the candy counter now. I'm so hip to this Woolworth down here that I can even tell when they change. The girl comes in and they painted the ceiling and stuff like that. So I drift downstairs and I'm moving around. And then I see these signs all over. It says, back to school specials. And it hit me. Just a tiny tingle. And I go upstairs, I walk around again. I see all these notebooks and junk. Back to school. Now, this is not nostalgia we're talking about here. Forget nostalgia. We're not discussing nostalgia. Get it out of your mind. We are talking about an experience we all went through. Now, even the youngest kid listening to me, I presume there aren't many preschool kids listening, but I would say that the youngest kid, he also went through this. It's one thing that binds us all, regardless of sex, race, you name it. We all of us, had a first day in school. Now, even if you only went to school through the 3rd grade and quit, doesn't matter. You still had that first day. That sudden impact of the bureaucracy, the organized, the communal world that was outside. The thing that makes this such a traumatic moment in most people's lives is that this is really their first personal involvement, where they have to take a place in that official world outside of the home. So the average kid, he's got his little thing going in the house, see? I mean, his life. And he, he sits down at the table and they give him a scarf. He sits down, he eats the meatloaf, and he goes out the back. And he plays ball with Heine and all the crowd. And he's got a little thing going, you see. And all of a sudden, a big finger comes out of the sky and points at him. The time has come. Your time has come. Up to this time, all the other people in the family have been marching out to things. The old man every day goes to work, we'll say. Maybe there's a sister or a brother in the family. That one has always gone out and done this thing. It's a mysterious thing that happens away from the house, see. And they come back at night. And all of a sudden, through the window comes a mysterious, ephemeral, ghost-like hand that points at little Clarence. Just points right at him, see? And he's sitting there, he's knocking down a meatloaf. He's eating his meatloaf and his cabbage, he's eating away there. The big hand points. We want you. And he looks up, he says, who, me? We want you. It is your time, Clarence. And Clarence, driven by vast forces of life, times, death and truth, history, convention, all of it. It's all tied up in one big ball of wax. Clarence is about to really experience the first major, irrevocable, total, complete milestone of his life. And from that day on, old Clarence is swimming in that same old big old river with all the rest of us. Yeah, with the dead toads and the lily pads, the bullheads, the catfish, the rushes and the mud. Clarence is swimming in that great big old river. That river called mankind. He has stopped being a kid. He has moved out of that old nest, and he's now one of us. Yeah. Now, sometimes Clarence drags his feet. Other times he tries to swim on his back, blow bubbles up at the sky. Then there are times he says, well, I'm going to dive way down here to the bottom and see what it's like down there in the bottom. And he dives down there. Then he's got to take a breath. He comes back up. Then he floats along with us. All of us. Just drifting on down that great big old river. Hey, I'm going to sleep out in the kitchen. Put my feet in the hall. Because, baby, I know what you done to me. You ain't going to push me around no more. Just know. Hey, doo-doo-doo-ba, ba-ba-bee-ba-ba-boo-ba. I was going to walk until my hat floats. Ba-ba-boo-ba-boo-ba-boo-boo-boo. Ba-ba-boo-boo, ba-ba-boo-boo-boo-boo-boo, ba-ba-boo-ba-ba-ba. Ba-ba-ba-boo-doo. Oh, that old river. Ba-ba-boo-boo. Don't say nothing, just keeps rolling on. Ba-boo-boo-boo. That old river don't cry, don't weep, don't do nothing. Just keeps rolling along. Ba-ba-boo. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-doo-doo-doo. Ba-boo-boo-ba. All right, there you go. Yeah. So we're not talking about nostalgia, friends. Get it out of your skull. Stop it. We're not talking about the old days. Get it out of your beans. Stop it. We is talking about L-I-F-F-E-E-E. Life. You dig, Keith? You dig. And it ain't nothing like it. It's the only thing we all got. And the best thing we all got. You look up that old sky once in a while, you say, you know, there's one thing that you got to say about me. I'm walking around. And there's a sky over me, and I can see it. I can feel it. I can smell it. Well, I remember the first time. I remember that very first day that I went to school. The very first day. Now, how I remember this, well, it's probably the same reason why you remember your first day. In fact, I know it's the same reason. But why I happen to be able to pull it out of my vast Kodachrome file of busted up slides of memory is because, one, that happens to be my profession. You know, my job, the work that I've chosen in life, is mostly totally introspection. And then transmitting it out. That's what an artist does, really. He pulls things out of his memory and his perceptive nerve endings, and he tries to pour it into some form where we can tell the other people, see what it is. It's what Norman Mailer does. It's what all people who attempt to interpret life do, whether they're doing it on the radio or television, movies, newsreels, sculptor, or scratching it in the sand or writing dirty words on the subway. They're all trying to say it, whatever it is. Nobody can quite grab a hold of it and say why they say it, but they do. And that's it. Squirrels do not write short stories. They do not. There has been no recorded instance of a bear sitting down, taking his felt-tip pen in hand, and starting out, call me Ishmael. Never. Man, yes. Bears, no. It's one of the great differences between man and beast. I make no moral judgment on that. It is a difference. But that first moment of going to school, I will repeat, do you? Because it was there. And it is there. It's there with you. If an 8-year-old kid listening to me right now, that milestone that he went through is just as far back in his memory as if you're 90 listening to me. Now, that's hard to believe, but it's true. It is definitely true. Because to an 8-year-old kid, his life has been going on forever. And that moment when he went to school the first day, which was 3 years ago, is a half a lifetime almost back. It's a long time. If you're 60 and you went to school that first day, it doesn't seem any longer ago to you than the 8-year-old kid. Believe it or not. It's true. There's a lot they don't know yet about memory, perception of time. All these convex, circular, concave mathematical structures that exist in the fourth dimension around us. And so there I am, see. I remember it so, it's vivid. I have already, by the time you go to school, you already form. You've got your ideas of what school is about because you know you're going to go. Everybody talks about school. You're going to go to school. Oh, are you in school yet, Jeannie? When do you go? You know that you're going to go to school one day. Now, I happen to be the oldest kid in my family, so I was the first kid to go to school. My brother was younger. And so I'm got all these ideas of what school is about. And I even remember my image of what I thought school was going to be. I had seen pictures of classrooms with desks. The desk itself was very, very, very attractive to me. The idea of having a desk. You know, little kids love desks. They love to sit at a little table, their own little thing, say, pile stuff on it. Have their desk. And we never lose that, by the way. Oh, there's nothing that a man likes better than his desk. His place where his little business goes on, whether it's, just sitting at it, sending out the bills. It's his desk. Desks have always had a mystical importance in people's minds. And this goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. And so I'm this little kid, and I can remember, man, the idea of having a desk and being in school and with all these kids. And I always pictured school, too, to have something to do with reading. And I was a fanatical reader, and I don't want, don't, I was an early reader. A lot of people are late readers. Again, that has nothing to do with intelligence really much. It's just to do with a lot of things that happen in your family. And I was an early reader, and I could read by the time I was about 4. And I could read well. And so my whole idea of school was that I would go to school and that we would read and we'd have the desk. I would have this desk, see. And every time they have pictures in ads, for example, about school, what do they always show? Pencils. They always show pencils. They always show tablets. And they always show a kid standing by a desk and wearing a little jacket or something, like back to school special and so forth. They show blackboards. They show somebody's drawn a picture of a teacher. This is always there. By the way, in all the years I went to school, I never saw anybody draw a picture on a blackboard that says teacher under it. This is one of those continuing myths that whenever an ad man decides to make a layout in an ad for the Post, they always have this blackboard that says teacher. It shows this stick figure. I've never did. Did any of you ever see that in school? Never. Never. I didn't. If you did, I'll tell you, you better be very careful. Examine your memory again and see whether or not you're beginning to confuse the myth of the ad with what actually happened to you.